Hi. So today, to see how Impulse Sync can be used to adjust and migrate some HTML and adjust it as appropriate, whether into an iframe or maybe a different, shorter embed and such, and migrate that into destination and HTML. So what we're going to see if we look at this file, we have some HTML here where we need to take it from this and convert it into this, where it's this larger div and to a smaller iframe paragraph. We have 4 different examples here. There's one, here's another one, and so on and so forth. Now, this HTML is all stored in a source system, so we actually have these articles with title and body in a Drupal 7 system, where we have the HTML, as you can see, put into the body field. So we have 4 different articles we're specifically interested in migrating over. And we'll be migrating them over into a content stack Drupal article field or content type with a title and a body. So I'm going to go ahead and start running this job, and we can take a look at its configuration for how we are accomplishing this. So firstly, we do have our source endpoint and our destination endpoint. There's nothing particularly special about them. They're just configured to pick up the articles and deliver them to the destination. What we do have, though, are 4 different manipulators, one for each case that we're handling. So we take a look at one of our first manipulators here. What we'll see here is we have a liquid template, larger liquid template, where we're able to take and section out and parse out the values that we need and necessary from the larger HTML, such as where we can take our body field and section it for the embed container Instagram class. And taking that section, we can section it again, searching for what is basically our source URL. And once we have that, we'll assign it into a variable. And because we're running all of these manipulators on different articles that may require one manipulator versus another, what I have here in our liquid template is actually an if condition to check to make sure that this should be run, which logic we should apply it to. So if we found an Instagram source URL, we will apply the appropriate transformation. Otherwise, we will keep the body as it is. So assuming we are manipulating a content that has this requirement, what we'll see here is we are creating and assigning a variable, that shortcode, which is where we're taking that larger HTML and converting it down to a single iframe with the source. And notice here we're reusing our IG source variable and just using some append to create the new HTML value we want to replace with. Now, once we have our shortcode as a variable, we are able to actually use more liquid templating to take the body value as it currently stands, and we will replace our HTML class called embed container Instagram with our shortcode HTML that we have created above. And what you'll notice here is basically all 4 of these liquid manipulators work very similarly. Some have more variables that they need to assign, and others have just that one variable for a source URL. For instance, if we take a look here at our second manipulator, what you'll notice is we have 3 separate variables that we're assigning. A source, we have an ID, and a padding. But very similarly, we have where we take our body value, and we will be using our section filter to parse it out into various sections, clean up the source value, and replace anything that we need to. For our ID, so that's how we'll get our source URL. For our ID, we will again take that body value, we will section it, searching through and section it down to where we just have the ID value we are interested in. Similarly, for padding, we will take the body value, find the appropriate section, and clean it up as appropriate. And we're actually going to, because padding can be 4 separate values, we're actually going to top, bottom, left, and right. We'll actually turn this into an array using our split filter. Again, we have some logic here to determine if we need to create the shortcode or if we want to just keep the body value as it stands based on if we have an ID or a source and the source URL. Assuming we have both, you'll see we're again assigning a new variable called shortcode, where we have some static text to start building our HTML, and we will be appending all our different variables we created above, such as our ID. We have our padding, appending our padding value for padding top, as well as our source URL. Finally, we'll be using our HTML replace again to take the body value. And in the HTML, we'll replace all scripts classes because we don't want them, as well as replace specifically this Wistia responsive padding with the shortcode that we've created above. And a quick look at our third and fourth manipulator. We will see that, again, here's where we have just one variable that we're creating, FBSRC, where we take the body value, section it out to obtain our source URL as necessary. And we can build our shortcode for this HTML block and replace it as necessary. And our fourth manipulator is similar to our second, where we have multiple assigned variables, where we're getting the source URL, the ID. In this case, the ID is sectioned into an array, so we need to find the correct index in our array, because we're taking what is basically a URL and finding the ID from the URL, because it's stored inside that. So we find the right index here. Again, we have our padding array, and we will set up the cleaned ID, where we're taking the ID and making sure that it's cleaned up. It has the clean and correct value using our ID array, our ID index variable, and our section filter. For our shortcode, we're going to see, again, as usual, our static HTML sections here, combined with our variables that we've created, such as clean ID, padding, and SRC. And finally, we will do again that HTML replace on the body value itself, where we remove any script tags as necessary and replace our Wistia responsive padding with the shortcode in the HTML itself. With that being said, we do have a small mapper, obviously, to make sure we migrate the content into the correct content type and correct fields. So now that the job has run and finished, we can go ahead and check our destination. And what we will see here in our destination is our articles migrated over. And we want to specifically take a look at these articles titled embed. And what we'll be able to see is, once this loads, we can take a look at the actual HTML that is saved in our body field. And we will notice that what we went from is that large section of HTML with multiple lines of HTML down to just this simple paragraph with the embed as appropriate. And you notice our ID has been populated, we have our padding, as well as our source URL. And we can see that for our other embeds as well, where we've now have the iframe tags with our source URL as appropriate and the data type as necessary. Here's our Wistia embed 2, which is the content we looked at originally from our Drupal source, with its ID, its padding, and its source URL. And finally, the last embed here, which is again another iframe, appropriately converted from a large HTML into this smaller shortcode. Thanks for watching.